What's going on YouTube? So the Honda CR-V is always one of the very best-selling vehicles in the US, which is why we spend as much time as we can with it every year. And we just spent a week with this refresh model to thoroughly test it out. And after that week, how does it stack up against the competition? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Let's kick things off with our quick spec dump. So under the hood of the 26 CR-V, we still have two engine options. This is the hybrid. So this is a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine with 2 electric motors making 204 horsepower. It's paired to a direct drive transmission that behaves like an eCVT. And with all-wheel drive on this TrailSport trim, combined fuel economy is 35 miles per gallon.
Now, the base price of the CR-V this year is $30,000, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, this, of course, is a 7-day review, so we have a couple special elements, such as talking about our real-world fuel economy after living with it this week, as well as at the end telling you if we like it better, the same, or worse.
But let's go ahead and close up the hood, because there's plenty to talk about with the outside and the inside. Now, like we mentioned at the introduction, this is one of America's best-selling vehicles year after year after year. And because of that, Honda didn't make a lot of design changes to this CR-V. Actually, you'll be hard-pressed to really be able to tell anything is different up here in the front, besides for one important thing, and that's that there's a new trim level this year. It is the TrailSport trim level, which is what we've been testing out this week. It's going to give it a slightly more rugged edge in terms of the design and functionality. We'll talk about that as we go through the vehicle, but as you can see, blacked out grille up here in the front. Most of the models will have this gloss black finish, and then down here in the lower part, we've got a silver accent. Now, moving to the headlights, we have standard full LED headlights. These are reflector low and high beams. It's across all the models, plus your LED daytime running light and turn signal indicator. And walking around to the back, of course, it's just got that signature CR-V design. They don't rock the boat too much with this.
Now, for the refresh, they didn't really change much, but it is a very tasteful design. So we have a spoiler up here at the top, a rear window wiper, and of course the signature CR-V taillights. They're kind of a full length across the back, very vertically oriented. We have a LED brake light, LED reverse light. However, we do still keep the incandescent turn signal. I really wish they had swapped that out for a full LED unit this year. And then as we drop down to the lower fascia, this is going to be a mixture of some matte black plastic as well as some silver. We also do have dual integrated exhaust outlets for your hybrids. And speaking of the hybrids, they can tow about 1,000 pounds. If you choose the gasoline variant, that goes up to 1,500 pounds.
Next up, we have the wheels. You've got several different designs to pick from depending on which trim level you choose. This is the 18-inch alloy that we get on the TrailSport with the special gray finish and a little bit of a blockier shape, Wrapped around it, though, is one of the only things really that's giving you extra capability on this CR-V TrailSport, and that's your all-terrain tires. We'll talk about later on if this adds any road noise or anything like that during the test drive. But as far as ground clearance, there's no additional ground clearance for this model. Now, taking a look at our mirrors, gloss black finish up here. If you get anything but the base model, you'll have heating and blind spot monitoring.
Now, at the side of the CR-V, overall vehicle length is about 185 inches, which is about 4 inches longer than that new RAV4. And as far as design touches, the TrailSport gets the blacked out door handles. I really like that. And all of the hybrids for 2026 will have the blacked out window surrounds. You also have a blacked out roof rail up here at the top, so I think it looks really good, especially if you select this new paint color, which is known as ash green. I think this looks absolutely fantastic, and we got some compliments this week on it. Now, as far as your active safety features, you do have all of those as standard equipment on the CR-V. That will even include things like adaptive cruise control with a traffic jam assist, and all of those worked really well this week. But guys, we need to go ahead and dive into the inside and what tech upgrades they've done in there. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then we have reviewed over 2,000 vehicles at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from humble to high-end, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. All right, now on to the interior. First, here's our Honda key fob. They do a good job of making a small and quality key fob, which will also give you smart entry and remote start on all but the base LX trim. That means you can just grab behind the handle there and unlock the door. When we do that and look inside, just like with the exterior, there's not going to be giant changes to the interior, but there are some detail changes that are nice enhancements, and we'll talk about that as we go along. What we'll begin talking about, though, is our seats. So, taking a look at these, all of your lower trims will come with cloth seating until you get up to the TrailSport here, which comes with the special branded TrailSport cloth seat. As you can see, it's got the special stitching details as well as TrailSport branding up here in the headrest. The seats themselves, very nice and comfortable. The headrest, very hard. But they do heat up really fast as well with the heated seats, and then the other trims will come with leather seats. You have your power adjustment right there with two-way lumbar support. You will have to get leather seats, though, if you want memory, so that means it's not available here on the TrailSport. And let's go ahead and climb inside. Continue to have animation across the gauge cluster when you close up the door. And let's look at the rest of the cabin materials. So even though this is not the top trim, there's not a lot of differences between this and the Sport Touring. You still have a leatherette material on the door trim and a padded plastic through here. You have a black accent right there. The top part of the dash will be a soft touch plastic. You have the single vent effect and then some more of that dark trim through the center section. I will point out that the TrailSport has an amber color to the ambient lighting, which is exclusive to this trim. Everything feels nice and solid, although it is, of course, a little bit more utilitarian, especially when we're talking about the top trims versus some of the competition. Let's fire it up with the push-button start. Now, like I was saying when we first looked inside the vehicle, while the overall design didn't change a lot, there are some nice feature tweaks, and that begins right here with our gauge cluster. So the 10.2 digital gauge cluster that you're seeing right now, this is now on our TrailSport trim level and above, so that gives you kind of some nice availability of that even on the middle trim. Just be aware there's no head-up display, no matter even if you get the loaded model. Now, as we move back to the steering wheel, you can see we've got the leatherette wrapped steering wheel. It is heated on the TrailSport model, and then the other models with leather seats will also get this experience. It's manual tilt and telescoping. And then rain sensing wipers are on the top trim. Now, let's take a look at interior storage. This has long been a very important area for Honda, and the CR-V excels here. So we're looking inside at some donuts. Honda says this center console is 9 liters. I don't really know what that means in terms of what you can stick in here, but when we load it with donuts, we know that it fits 18 donuts, which is absolutely fantastic. So I think this certainly backs up their claim that this is one of the very largest center consoles that you can get in this segment, period. Now, in front of that, you've got your 2 cup holders. You have another storage cubby right here and a wireless phone charging pad. Does not have a passenger storage shelf, though. Some of the rivals do offer that. As far as the shifter is concerned, this is also very traditional. So you'll just pull down for drive. You can go back again if you want to go into a higher regen mode and control that with the paddle shifters. And then when we go into reverse, here's the backup camera you'll see across the entire lineup. Overall, the resolution on this is not great. It's definitely a little grainy. You have 3 different views you can choose from. And then your higher end trims will get the parking sensors, but no 360 camera, even on the top model. That's certainly something that the vast majority of the rivals are making available on the top trim or even some of the lower trims. Over here we have our electronic parking brake with our brake hold and our drive mode controller. Now, as we move through the interior, you'll find some more features that are just nice and simple. It's very refreshing to engage with this CR-V, I will say. One of those things is the climate controls, dual zone automatic across the entire lineup with the nice easy knobs and the illumination in the background. We also have our 3-stage heated seats right over here, but vented seats is another feature that they continue to not offer, and certainly would have liked to see them update that for 2026 and get that more in line with the competition. We also have a physical volume knob for the audio systems. So there's 4 different choices here. You start with 4 speakers, you move to 6, then 8, and then finally 12 speaker Bose sound system at the top end. The TrailSport trim level comes with the middle tier, so we've got the 8 speaker, and let's go ahead and hear that. Pretty good. We definitely liked this audio system over the past week. We spent a lot of time with the Sport Touring as well with the Bose sound system. While that is a little bit better, I don't think the difference is actually all that profound. So if that's like the only reason you're going up to the Sport Touring, you probably don't need to do that. Okay, let's talk about the technology here, which is a big change for 2026. So Honda has now gotten rid of the small 7-inch display. They went to a standard 9-inch display across all of the trim levels. That, of course, is what you're looking at right now. This display does come with wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay abilities. Throughout the week, we had no problems with this system working as intended. And the resolution is fine, although the screen, even at 9 inches, could be a bit larger. Some of the rivals definitely have a larger screen. One thing worth pointing out, though, is that unless you get the top model, which has a new Google built-in system with Google Maps and some nice features for 2026, but unless you get that, instead you'll get this very basic software. And as you can see, what is displayed on here right now is actually the entire functionality. Like, there's nothing really that you can do with this system except go into Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. So if you rely on those systems, you probably won't notice, but if you're actually using Honda's system, it's very basic unless you get the top trim. Now up top here, we have a manual dimming mirror. An auto dimming one without HomeLink remotes are on the top trims. And then we have a standard size sunroof. This is actually included on all but the base model, but there is no panoramic availability.
All right, so we need to talk about the rear seats for the CR-V. This, of course, is a very practical vehicle, and that starts before you even get into the rear seats. You'll notice that the doors open at nearly 90 degrees. That would definitely make loading in a car seat quite easy. And let's talk about space, because that's another area where the CR-V does really exceptionally well. We're looking at 41 inches of legroom, 38 inches of headroom. So the legroom, this is really the class leader when it comes to that department. It's at least one of the very largest options in the entire segment. Of course, I brought along the official Car Confections ruler. This is Drew's seating position. He's 5'8" and I'm 5'9", and we are looking at about 9 inches of knee space. That is absolutely fantastic. My feet can slide up underneath of the seats. And that's not the end of the good news, because these rear seats actually have 8 modes of reclining. So unlike many of the rivals that only give you just a tiny bit of recline, you can actually really recline the CR-V to make your rear seat comfort go up exponentially more. And like I said, there are 8 different modes. We have a center armrest with 2 cup holders inside. Additionally, we have our rear vents right here in the center. USB ports down below. I do want to point out, no heated rear seats are offered on the CR-V. I wish that was something that they had added for the refresh. Many of the rivals do include that. Not available here on this model. Over here on the door trim, it's going to be hard touch on really most of it, but the armrest portion is going to be a nice leatherette, and you have a ton of door storage down below. So really, if practicality is at the forefront of your mind, you will really like the CR-V. Now, your lower CR-Vs will have a manual tailgate. We just have the standard power tailgate, and if you want hands-free, that's a Sport Touring exclusive feature. Now, let's talk about overall cargo capacity. So like I said just a second ago, this is a very practical vehicle that does translate to cargo space as well. We're sitting at about 40 cubic feet of space behind the second row of seats. If I fold those seats down, we're looking at about 76.5 cubic feet. That is still the reigning champion in the segment. That is the largest option that you can get. And speaking of other options that you could get in this segment, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. The reason you should do that is because we've looked at all of the vehicles in this class and ranked them in the 10 most important categories to this type of buyer. Things like cargo capacity, rear seats, interior technology, powertrain choices, and very importantly, value. And you can see the best options in each of those categories. So if you want to make an informed buying decision in this very crowded space, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. Now back to the CR-V, you will notice that the seats fold 60-40 split. There are not any handles to fold them in the cargo area, so you can just reach up here and try and fold it. However, it is very difficult, honestly, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it from the second row. And now that I've got those seats folded down, just be aware they don't go completely flat with the floor. There's a little bit of a hump, but overall cargo length is about 75 inches, so that's very good behind Drew's 5/8 seating position. From behind the second row, 35 inches. As far as the opening, that's 43 inches wide. That's very good for this segment. And the height is absolutely fantastic, 32 inches tall. Now, there is a little bit of extra space on both the sides. You do not have a spare tire on the hybrid model, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. However, you do have a little bit of an air compressor right back here in case you run into some issues, but just be aware that is definitely something worth pointing out considering this is the off-road oriented model and you still do not have a spare tire. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the Honda CR-V. As you can see on the screen right now, we'll be covering quite a lot in this test drive. We'll also be getting things like our official Kentucky sound level reading and discussing our real-world fuel economy that we experienced this week. But first, we need to start with a hard acceleration.
Alright, there we are, 60 miles an hour. So, pretty good acceleration out of this two-motor hybrid system. So, like we talked a little bit about at the spec dump, you still have the two main powertrain options for the CR-V. You have the traditional gas-only option on your lower trims, and then well, pretty much all your higher trims, those are giving you the hybrid system, which is a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine with 2 electric motors. Power is 204 horsepower and 247 pound-feet of torque. So good numbers once again. I definitely like the torque figure. It pushes you back in the seat plenty and gets this up to speed quite nicely.
Absolutely. We've lived with the CR-V hybrid a couple times at this point, and every time we've just been very impressed living with this vehicle. The torque really gets you off the line. That nearly 250 pound-feet of torque is very good for this segment. Over 200 horsepower is definitely enough for people in this segment as well, and it is just a super smooth hybrid system. You cannot feel any of the gas or electric handoff. It is incredibly smooth. So this is definitely a highlight of this vehicle, the hybrid system, that is for sure. Now, if you don't want that, if you're one of those people that doesn't want any hybridization at all, Honda does still have you covered, which is something worth pointing out because the all-new RAV4 is going to be hybrid exclusive. So, if you want a traditional gasoline option, Honda does have you covered with a 1.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder, 190 horsepower, 179 pound-feet of torque. We've driven that one multiple times as well. I do personally think that this hybrid is definitely a big step up from that. However, that's going to be a perfectly satisfactory powertrain.
Yeah, just very nice and smooth and just plenty of power for this segment. Now, as far as the transmission situation is concerned, let's kind of get into that. If you get that 1.5 turbo, you get a conventional, continuously variable transmission. With the hybrid version, what you get is a direct drive system that behaves like an eCVT. As you can see when I was accelerating there, you get the shift simulation to try to emulate a more conventional feel overall. And I don't think the engine gets super loud. I think it's a little quieter than the RAV4, but there are some other rivals that are quieter under hard acceleration.
All right, and now we've turned on our designated strip of road to talk about overall ride quality for this model. That is an area where I think Honda has absolutely nailed this product. I really think it's yet to be beat in this segment. The dynamic between overall vehicle dynamics and ride quality is so good in this model. The ride quality is fantastic. You hit a bump in the road, you can hardly feel any of that intrusion inside the cabin. The seats are comfortable. It's really just a super comfortable vehicle that I could see you easily taking on long road trips and arriving in comfort. Now, I did kind of spoil that a little bit, but they have also baked in quite good dynamics as well. So unlike something like a Mazda CX-50 that focuses more on the dynamics than the ride quality, I think this does both really great.
Yeah, for sure. And you can kind of see that as soon as you turn off center. You've got a little bit of body roll, of course, but the steering is tuned, I think, kind of the perfect amount for this segment, because you have that immediate response while still being light enough for your everyday use. And it's just kind of a pleasurable vehicle to drive around in the city or on a country road.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and get our sound level reading. We have it on fan speed 1, and we'll see how quiet this cabin is. 58.5 decibels is what we are sitting at in the Honda CR-V. We don't have to sit here and guess how it compares to its competition. We can find that at carconfections.com/sound level readings. Now, as expected, that is going to be on the louder end for this segment. We have tested vehicles as quiet as like the lower 50s in this segment. The Hondas typically are kind of on the louder side, so that is something worth noting. I do believe they said they worked on a little bit of the quietness in the cabin for 2026, so I do believe that's a little bit quieter than maybe some of the previous CR-Vs that we tested, but you will hear quite a bit of road noise when you're driving this product throughout the week, that's for sure.
I think they mostly focus their insulation on the sport touring trim level. That's kind of typical for Honda, actually, is to give you more insulation, but only on the top trim. As promised, we need to talk a little bit about the tires as well. I don't actually hear those. I don't think that's a big contributor to the sound of this. This just kind of is more of a general road noise that you hear in all the CR-Vs across the lineup.
But what about the fuel economy, and how did we stack up in the real world this week? Well, let's go ahead and hit that. So for 2026, we're rated at 40 miles per gallon combined with the hybrid front drive. That is the most efficient one that you can get with all-wheel drive, 37 mpg. And this TrailSport does get worse fuel economy just because of the all-terrain tires, 35 miles per gallon combined for this model. The non-hybridized, just traditional gas models are rated at about 30 mpg. And as far as our real-world fuel economy this week, we drove about 150 miles on mostly highway. I'd say probably 65 to 70% highway driving, the rest in the city. So kind of mixed, but mostly highway. We're sitting at 34.3 mpg. So that is very much on the money for what the EPA is saying for this vehicle. It's rated at 35, so I would expect that you will get right at that EPA rating for this CR-V, which is certainly a good thing. I do want to point out, though, that the all-new RAV4 is rated higher than this model. It's, I believe, 42 mpg, so that's a little bit more of a delta than it was even before the new model came out. And let's get into our slam dunk and airball, our favorite and least favorite element. Drew, kick us off with the slam dunk.
Actually, I'm going to just do the slam dunk and airball kind of all in one. It's pretty simple with this vehicle. This CR-V continues to nail the fundamentals, the big things that people are looking for in this segment. It absolutely nails it. Where the airball side of things comes in is that it doesn't really want to give you anything extra. There's a lot of things a lot of competition, a lot of rivals, and those can give you a lot more features, a lot more luxury, different types of categories of things that this CR-V doesn't seem all that interested in delivering, and they did not really change that with the 2026 update.
Yeah, I think the refresh year was a perfect opportunity for them to add things like ventilated seats, a panoramic moonroof, 360 camera, things like that. Buyers are definitely looking for, and Honda's just like, nah, let's not add that. And after 7 days, do we like it better, the same, or worse? Well, I'm going to say for this TrailSport trim level specifically, we like it worse. The reason for that is just because it honestly feels kind of basic. I mean, aside from things like a heated steering wheel and heated seats, there's not a lot going on inside this cabin. It feels more like a low $30,000 vehicle as opposed to $40,000, which we'll talk about in just a second. However, in general, we do really love the CR-V, and living with this vehicle is actually quite the pleasure because it is so good in those fundamental areas that Drew was talking about earlier. Now, of course, we need to discuss pricing. So like I said at the very beginning of this video, we start at $30,920. That is for the base LX with front wheel drive. Now, as you move up the trim structure, of course, the price elevates quite a lot. The Sport Touring all-wheel drive starts at $42,250. So that's the fully loaded example. This TrailSport is about $38,800. And as far as this particular model that we're looking at today, we have the optional ash green, $455 for that, $1395 destination. All told, we're sitting at $40,650 as tested today. Now, if you're curious as to where this vehicle is manufactured in Greensburg, Indiana. And if you're looking to buy a Honda CR-V or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you should do that is because we have a tool on our website that will connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use while dealership negotiating. If you'd like to take advantage of that, as well as things like our monthly payment tool, you can find a link to that down below in our video description, as well as a pinned comment at the top of this video. But buying a vehicle is about more than just the original MSRP, so let's talk about resale and reliability. First up, let's talk about resale value. As an economics graduate myself, we took the time to develop what we think is a good estimate for this Honda CR-V's potential resale value. We estimate that after 5 years and 60,000 miles, it'll retain 64.79% of original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 34.34%. Now, it's worth noting that is actually the very best resale value percentage across the entire auto industry in the 5-year metric, and it is one of the very best in the 10-year metric as well. So it's a phenomenal resale value compared to its competition.
And the same can also be said for reliability. That's why we developed the Combined Reliability Index, which takes into account several reliability studies from trustworthy sources and combines them in a way that gives you a holistic picture. When we factor in all the latest information, Honda is one of the top-rated brands in terms of reliability.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale values, our reliability data, or our methodology, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase, especially if you're cross-shopping between different vehicle brands. Now, when it comes to your warranty, you do have a pretty good one for the Honda brand. It's a 3-year, 36,000-mile basic warranty, a 5-year, 60,000-mile powertrain warranty, and you do also get complimentary maintenance for 1 year and 12,000 miles. And guys, that's all for our in-depth review of the refreshed 2026 Honda CR-V. Like Drew said, we try and spend as much time as possible with very important products to you all, the viewers. So hopefully you found our 7-day impressions helpful. And if you did, we'd really appreciate you subscribing down below. By subscribing, you're going to get more content like this, and you're also going to be a part of our Car Confections family. We have a lot of fun. I promise you won't want to miss out. If you're already a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support. And we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.